Hello and welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show live. It got me.
It got you, mate. It got you.
It's been a while. It's been a while since it's got me, but it's got me again. You can tell we haven't been doing many shows lately, can't you? Anyways, welcome along to the West Yorkshire Football Show live. We're chatting all things Leeds United. It's me, Browney, along with Jason Booker as well. Jason, how we doing, mate?
Very well, mate. Very well. A bit of a rushed execution. Sorry, it's my fault that we're 15 minutes late today. Scheduled for 8:30, but yeah.
Hey, we got there in the end, didn't we? We got there. That's what counts. Kevin, evening. Browney and Jason, evening, mate. Hope you're well. Okay, well, let's get into it. It was 3-1 against Swansea last night. The Whites emerging victorious. I guess we have to talk about the very start of the match, which was insane. I can't really quite remember a start to a game like that. We're going to get into everything and break it down properly, but that start to the game was just wild. I'd pretty much just settled down and we had the ball in the back of the net, gets ruled out, goes up the other pitch. Unbelievable finish from Patson. A bit of a mistake by Strike. It was bedlam, and I thought at that point, 1-0 down within a minute after having a disallowed goal. What are we in for this evening? But actually, in the end, it turned out pretty comfortable, but a wild start, Jason, wasn't it?
Well, I had a bit of an issue with my radio.
Oh, no.
So when I turned the game on, I literally, it was like 4 minutes or whatever, and it was 1-1. I was like, what? It weren't until half time that I even realised we'd had the ball in the net before their goal. So yeah, I had a bit to catch up on, but obviously I've watched it all back now and seen it, and unbelievable start to the game, wasn't it? I mean, great start by Leeds. Whether it was on or offside, I've not seen a perfect angle of the offside goal for James, but we started obviously well. I mean, Somerville in them first 10 minutes. I mean, he was unplayable all game. We'll get into that. But the first 10 minutes, I mean, he was just blistering. Big mistake by Pascal, but that happens. I mean, at the end of the day, like when, if you're a striker and you make a mistake, you miss a shot or you miss a target, or if you're a winger and you make a mistake, you run out of play. When you're a centre-back and you make a mistake, that's what happens sometimes. And in Pascal's defence, it then took an unbelievable finish to kind of capitalise on that mistake. Sometimes you just have to say props, fair play. Hell of a finish, but we reacted really, really well. Really well. Not to skip too far ahead, but I thought Swansea played really well first half. Really, really well. I thought they looked like a really decent outfit. I think they're a young side. I think they're probably tired as the game went on, and I think in the second half they kind of succumbed to their position in the game. But I thought first half they were a real threat. I mean, there were a few moments where they were knocking the ball around really nicely, won a few corners, and played through the press quite nicely. Overall, I mean, crazy first 10 minutes, and then I thought we built back into the game nicely.
Yeah, it was one of those, wasn't it? Because when we got it back to 1-1 3 minutes after they scored, fantastic finish by Boro. I kind of expected Leeds to steamroller them a little bit, but actually, Swansea were decent, and I was a little bit worried that first half, and actually you could hear it in the crowd as well. There was that anxiety when they seemed to have oceans of space when like you said, they beat the press, and there was yards to run into. And I thought, what are we in for here? But yeah, without skipping ahead, I thought second half it was just all Leeds really, and totally dominant. And I suppose they'll be a little bit frustrated they couldn't kind of keep that going really.
I thought I think we built back into the game, because you're not going to just dominate 90 minutes of every game. We're not Man City. That's just not the way that it works. I thought they really asserted themselves on the game. What they were doing was really smart. They looked to sit really deep when they was without the ball, but they looked to spring really quickly when they then got into possession, and they weren't afraid to try and knock the ball in triangles around us, and they did that a few times in the first half. I thought from probably the 15th, 20th minute, something like that, to about 35th minute, I thought they totally dominated that section of the game. But Leeds then did really well to kind of take back over and assert themselves and their game plan back on the game, get Dan James in the game. We sometimes even look to switch it up a little bit. And I mean, the Rutter goal, we've not scored a goal like that all season, where just one long ball. Sometimes that's all it takes. Just vary up the attack and change the pace of the play a little bit and give them something different to think about, because what that stopped them doing then was pushing us super high. It was quite an impressive. I mean, it was a fantastic assist by Ampadu, great touch by Rutter. I mean, we'll talk about that separately, but it was just unbelievable. But the intention of just changing up and varying the play was really, really good. It was almost, I would say, certainly from the 35th minute onwards, one of our most complete performances, because I thought the second half was a complete domination for Leeds. Thought we asserted ourselves much better. We moved the ball quicker. Played some really, really good stuff second half. Really, really good.
Yeah, absolutely. Good evening, everyone in the chat as well. Gail, Mark as well. Thanks for your comment, mate. Welcome along. Please do like the video, get your comments in, what you think on the game last night and going forward. Tough game this weekend for Leeds coming up as well. Let's rewind a little bit then, because it was a poor result against Rotherham last Friday. There's no doubt about it. And I was kind of a bit miffed about it for a few days after, because you're just thinking, come on, and then you see Rotherham get beaten so easily the other night and you're thinking, why couldn't we just do that? How important was it that actually, especially after going 1-0 down after a minute, how important is it to prove to yourself and that, you know, we're not going to have a wobble here, we're going to get straight back on the horse and we're going to get the 3 points?
I think it's a massive, massive result, especially considering the fact that we've got Middlesbrough at the weekend. I think Middlesbrough at the weekend's a really tough game. And truthfully, like, I don't want to not win any game, but if we were to take away a point from the weekend, I'd be all right with that, if I'm honest. Like, we're gonna drop worse points than Middlesbrough away this season, i.e. Rotherham away. So I wouldn't be too upset with that. Hopefully we can go there and win. I think we play better against the better sides. We really struggle against the low blocks, and we're just not clinical enough. I mean, even last night, I messaged you 5 or 10 minutes into the second half, and I'm like, how many chances do we need? And then thankfully, James scored the third about 2 minutes after I'd mentioned that. But we literally missed a catalogue of chances at the beginning of that second half. We could have been completely out of sight. And again, in the moments where it goes against you and they break back up the other end and win a penalty, or the ball bobbles in off Strike's backside or whatever, like, they're the games then when you end up coming away from it and you're thinking, how have we not won this game? And I mean, the Rotherham goal had shades of that. You know, Somerville loses a ball in the midfield, then Cooper gets beaten for pace, then the ball comes across the edge, Ampadu doesn't tackle hard enough, then Rodon and Archer getting each other's way. I mean, how many things are going to go against us in one passage of play? But that's football, and if you don't take your chances,
it made me laugh. Sorry to interrupt, but it made me laugh last night, actually, because Dorigo on commentary kind of was, made a point as well. It was first half where I think it had been a corner or something, and we were still up front. I think Dan James whipped a great ball in, and there was literally nobody in the box.
I don't know exactly what you're talking about.
Just like, Pirro, where are you? Get in the box, Rutter. What is going on? Why have we dropped so deep? And sometimes you would just, and I think you make an absolutely fantastic point about Rutter's goal, that variation, it's that I think sometimes when I watch Leeds a little bit, I don't want to say the word predictable, because we've got such clever forward players who do bring, something unpredictable. But the pattern of the play, sometimes it feels like you can be watching the same thing over and over again a little bit, and it's great when it works and everything. But it was nice to see a totally different goal.
Brian, I think we rely hugely on individual ability, and usually it comes from Somerville. The first goal, as an example, it's all Somerville cuts in off the left. There's nothing they can do about it, because they're having to put 3 or 4 players on him to stop him doing it, because he's so good at what he does. And then he makes the right decision, which sometimes I get frustrated with him on. But last night, pretty much his decision making all night was spot on. And the through ball to Perot. The third goal was. I'm just trying to think back now. The third goal was actually the break, wasn't it? It was the break from Byron. But there were several chances that were created throughout the game that came through. Give the ball to Somerville. Somerville cuts inside and he tries to find the slide ball through. Give the ball to Rutter. Rutter spins off and does something insane himself. There's some intricate moments between players, but most of the patterns of play do look very similar. I agree with you. And I think thankfully at this level, we can get away with it because the players that we're playing up against just can't deal with the quality that we've got. That's why I think the low block works so well, because it's a very rigid tactical instruction that says you sit there, and you don't move, or you man mark that particular player, and if he beats you, don't worry, the gaps in behind you are covered. Do you know what I mean? So, and that's why it's difficult to sometimes break down a low block when you don't vary up the attacks. When Ampadu played that pass last night, I think he only made it because there was about 10 seconds of the half to go. Yeah. I think it genuinely entered his brain. I don't think that was the instruction. I think that was from Ampadu. I don't think it was like Daniel Farke said, "Oh, you vary it up and do something different." I think that came from the individual.
Well, he'd been making a lot of runs, hadn't he? I mean, you couldn't really see, but obviously, if you were at the ground or the advantage point of Dorigo on commentary again, and he said Rutter's been making these runs, oceans of space up front, and nobody's found him at all. I think there was a moment in second half when the break was on and Somerville dithered and didn't play a long ball when Rutter was free again. And, it's interesting really because, I think you're probably right, because it was towards the end of the half. He thought, stuff it, I'll just, launch this. And it just happened to be brilliant. And obviously the way Rutter took it was fantastic, and we will break that down. We might even play it again on the show. I think it was definitely worthy. Sorry, go on, mate.
I was just going to say, I mean, again, you might have thought about mentioning this later, but I mentioned it to you last night. I thought Pirot last night was fantastic. Yeah. Like, his link-up play last night was the best it's ever been. For me, it was his best performance. I thought it was man of the match. I think most people will probably go for Rutter or Somerville again, which is fair enough. But for me, I thought if you watched Pirot yesterday and just watched him, his movement was fantastic. He was dropping very deep at times, which sometimes we don't want to see him doing, but he was actually linking the play nicely yesterday. And what he did do yesterday was show a press. You said that yourself. He was showing like an aggressive press, not just an idle run over. Yeah. He was actually putting some momentum into it. And the goal that he scores, bear in mind that's on his weak foot because he's left-footed. There ain't another player in the team that finishes the ball like that. I know he's missed some chances this season, but that's exactly why we bought him. The running off the shoulder and just so calm. He puts his body in a perfect position to be able to bend that in with his right foot. There's no worry, or he's not stressing about the chances he's missed in other games. He's just doing his job again. And
the body position, the calm of the mind, it's just all there, isn't it?
I mean, we've had Swansea fans on tap today. I don't know if you've seen it on social media, but I've just got one in corner of my eye. Every good thought memory of these two has erased, in my opinion, especially Yul Pirot. And it's a picture of Pirot and Dan James, because obviously they both celebrated yesterday, and I love it.
Well, that's what I thought, actually. Yeah, he ran away. He peeled away to Pirot. He was going for it, wasn't he? He wasn't bothered, was he? He wasn't bothered. But it was interesting because I was watching Pirot and I was like, God, he's actually pressing like quite effectively. It looks like he's got that spring in his step. And I always remember I don't think Bamford was known as a presser, and then Bielsa got hold of him and he became this like supreme press machine that would hunt down the entire back four. And it's clearly something. I mean, it's interesting with the whole pressing thing. It's like, listen, you can run, you can press, you can actually press. Just it's like, what you say about Ronaldo at Man United, wasn't it? And, Messi's been accused of not pressing. Obviously, they're on a status where it's like, I'm going to let these other guys do my running. But generally at this level, there's no excuses really. Just get stuck and go for it. You're an athlete.
It's the easiest thing to train, isn't it?
If it was me, I couldn't press because I'm totally unfit. But, if you're a professional footballer, Christ.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. I think there is something in the stamina levels to be able to do it over a 90-minute period. I think some players have got that, some players haven't. Especially as a striker, which you usually work in bursts. So you're all or nothing. Like, you're out of the game for long periods of time where your team are building up play or defending or whatever. So I do understand why it's considered a bit of a skill set, if you like. But Bamford, before he came to Leeds, often played off the right. He played off the right for Middlesbrough. He didn't usually play as an out-and-out nine. So I think a lot of things like that can be trained. I think Gail's comment there about James is a different player as well. I think there's two major caveats with that. I think number one is the fact that he's now playing in his rightful position and he's allowed to stretch his legs and drive players, one-on-one. He's probably the quickest player you're going to come across in any league. He's so fast. And I think he's also playing at his level. I said to you pre-season, like, I think Dan James is going to be one of the best players in the division this season because he scares defenders at this level to death. Now, whether he can adapt his game to do that at Premier League level is a different question. He probably can't. But at this level, he certainly can. And I'm seeing exactly what I expected to see from Dan James. I think his finishing's improved. I didn't think we'd see the level of some of his finishing. But again, you get more time on the ball. You get more opportunities. You get more chances. Yesterday, he still had 3 or 4 chances that he P-rolled into keeper. Couple on his left that he does every time. And then
that left foot shot, I'm like, please.
Yeah. And then the one that he won back on... Well, he won one back on the edge of the box as well, where the ball had been given carelessly away, and then he kind of nicked back in and depossessed the midfielder right on the edge of the box, and he just curled it straight into the keeper's hands. It's like, come on. But then he pops up with that finish that he does yesterday. That's a quality finish. That's a real top finish.
Was that left foot as well? Was that a left foot finish?
Left foot,
wasn't it?
Yeah,
wow,
left foot.
There you go.
So I'm so happy for Dan James. He really deserves it because I think he's had such a rotten time of it at the club. I really do. So chuff for him.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. I think it's we've said it multiple times because you've got a top quality player in Gnonto just kind of waiting in the wings, aren't you, to steal that position potentially, and Dan James is keeping him at bay. And I actually, but one mention, I did think Gnonto looked a bit sharper last night when he came on, sharper than he's looked for a while. I thought
he looked quite sharp at Rotherham as well, and I've seen a lot of people say that when he came on. I don't know. Maybe he's just adjusting back in. Maybe he's fully fit. Maybe he weren't fully fit before. Maybe his head's fully in it. I don't know. Or maybe he's playing for a move. Who knows?
I still wonder if ultimately he's going to be the man that would come in above James potentially. I don't know how he'll get his position, to be honest, with the way it's going. But I just think his ceiling is a lot higher than Dan James.
Of course. I think that goes without saying, mate. I think that absolutely goes without saying that Gnonto's ceiling is higher than Dan James's. However, I do think for the entirety of the season, Dan James will be far more effective in terms of output throughout most 90 minutes because I just think I think Gnonto's easier to defend against at this level. I think you can sometimes know a little bit too much. Like he'll try and do things or make movements that, won't baffle championship defenders because they weren't expecting it anyway, or they weren't not expecting it. You know what I mean? Like they can almost overthink it. Whereas Dan James is just raw bliss talent in terms of his speed and pace and his directness. Like the defenders hate that. I mean, there ain't that many quick fullbacks in the championship, whereas in the Premier League there's loads of them. So yeah, I think it's a real tricky one. I won't be in any rush to drop Dan James, even though I said against Rotherham that probably made a lot of sense because again, when you've got a deep back line and you're sitting back in a low block, Dan James makes far less sense because he's got less space to run into. It is one concern that I have with Daniel Farke is that the team appears to be pretty rigid. I didn't think that was the case earlier on this season, but more and more as time goes on, it seems to be that he's got his 11, that's it. He's also got particular substitutes that come on at particular times of the game, regardless. Bamford, Gnonto, then Anthony, and who came on last night? There were another one that came on at the same time, and it just feels like, Firpo came on yesterday, didn't he? But you know what I'm saying, don't you? They follow a similar kind of pattern, and I do wonder how the likes of Gruev, who we've not really seen yet, a couple of the others that are on the bench, will feel, because I don't really care about their feelings as such, in that it doesn't matter if they're not the right person to play, but if there is drops in performances, what is the rotation system? What is the encouragement for these players to be driving? How long is Gnonto going to be happy just getting 20 to 30 minutes before he then starts a game and sees if he can earn his place through a start? You know what I mean? So,
but it feels like the best 11 at the minute, though, doesn't it? I mean, maybe not the right back situation. Obviously, Archie's doing fantastically well, but I think Spence is the one you ultimately want there. But it feels like this is the best 11, the most consistent one that we're getting the best out of. And I think, you look at someone like Jadon Anthony, who's disappointed in his starts. And it's difficult, isn't it? Because now, Pirot, it's that thing of you've paid all that money, he's going to play. And for me, when there were concerns, especially a few games ago, where it's like, God, does this guy really fit the system? Is this really working? it's like, well, it doesn't matter how badly it goes. It's going to keep trying it because you've paid all that money. And yeah, is it a bit inflexible? I mean, that's it. But he's made some big calls as well. I mean, Ayling's nowhere to be seen. He was out of the squad, and he talked about how difficult that was. He's made huge ones, but it's fascinating how he's going to deal with that going forward. Because I mean, believe it or not, we've got a nearly fully fit squad. Leeds United have got nearly a fully fit squad. I mean, it's bonkers, really. And the depth is something we've not had for years.
I do think Perot's the most naturally gifted finisher in the division.
Yeah.
And you just, with that in mind, you just can't not start him. Not that I would want to. I don't think there's anything that we've seen that thinks he should be out the side. No, I don't think it's at that level. I think there's some games where he's less effective than others. But if I had 100 chances, I would want Perot on all of them for us. I think Vardy's probably the only other as gifted striker in the division, because you don't see too many nines like that anymore that are so cool in front of goal. Perot's problem as far as the team is concerned is getting him into them positions, which we did really, really well yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, the Somerville slide through pass to Perot and the movement is just beautiful.
Don't you think though we could try and create that more? I mean, for me, I would like to. I know we say Perot has maybe a couple, 2 or 3 chances a game. I would really like to get him in those positions more, and especially those ones that, I mean, he scored a few goals like this season where he's kind of running onto the ball and it's a nice calm finish. I'd love to see us try and get more of that. I know it's I think not as easy as just saying that, but it'd be nice to have it.
I think Daniel Farke's angle on it, and I do understand it, is that Perot's not blissfully quick. He's just not. He's all right over 5 yards, but if you wanted him to stretch his legs, he's not quick. Whereas Rutter is. And Rutter's also intelligent enough to then drop into that 10 role and switch positions with Perot, who then takes up them spots in between in the channels. And I think that's where that goal comes from yesterday. Perot weren't playing 9 yesterday, he was playing 10 again, and he then found himself into that position, kind of switching with Rutter. So I understand it, but I do agree with you. There's got to be a way that we find Perot on the ball, in and around the box more often where he can shoot.
Yeah. I totally agree with Skip here. Thanks for your comment, mate. Still feels we are missing something in games, unsure what it is. I know what he means. It's like it's not fully clicked entirely yet. It's hard to put your finger on it, because obviously we're on an unbeaten run again and we're racking up these results. It might be something to do with the fact that our quality difference compared to a Swansea, we should be putting these games to bed. But I know what it means that, is it that specialist number 10 we're missing, for example, that would, or Jed Spence at right back? Is that what's missing from the team to really make it click?
I think we would go to another level with a 10, but I don't think we miss that as much as 2 natural fullbacks. And I'm not slamming Byron because I love him. And in that tackle yesterday, we'll talk about it in a bit. It was just beautiful. A chef kiss. It was that good. It was so good. And he's doing everything that he can do with what he's got, but he's not left-footed. If he was left-footed, I would have no problem with Byron playing every single game, because I think he would then be able to whip crosses in, and we'd have that to his arsenal as well. Because defensively, I think he's brilliant. But we lose so much of fullbacks. And again, it's no slight on Archie either. He's just not a natural fullback, and Archie's not very quick. Archie's got it all up here.
Yeah.
He's not as quick as what we would want a fullback to be. Defensively, he can manage because, again, he puts himself in the right positions. But when he's trying to get forward, Jed Spence will just offer us so much more, and he'll offer us so much more in the recovery. I think we'll click to another level when Spence is there. I mean, Dan James is already looking dangerous enough week in, week out at the moment. When he's got Spence dragging 2 players off, to follow him, how much more space and time is he then going to have? I'm excited by Spence coming in. A number 10 would definitely take us up another notch, and I think you could then see Perot playing in the.
Well, that's what I was going to say. What do you do with Perot and Rutter, and what happens to that then? I mean, I'm thinking if you do buy a number 10, what does happen to that? For me, I don't necessarily want to see Rutter move to the wing or anything. I think
it's tricky, isn't it?
It's very really tricky. I love what Rutter's doing at the moment, dropping deep and long and, dazzling us all with his skills. I don't want to see him kind of dump to the wing, really.
All I'll say with that is if Rutter was playing out on the right, especially, I think you would see him cause mayhem because he'd pick the ball up in more space than he's doing currently. Quite often when he's making these dazzling moments, they're very deep. If you think about it, they're towards a halfway line and he's spinning off and whatnot. If it was to be playing out on the wing where there's only a fullback really or a centre midfielder that's having to then pull over to kind of support, the amount of space he's going to get out there to then come in and do some of what we see him do. Think about against Watford earlier on this season when he came off the wing and he was, he was just mugging him off, wasn't he? I think you'd see a lot more of that. So I think we've never seen him out there, have we? Because all we've really seen of him is centrally because he didn't play last season. So I think I would imagine that is when you would then see Dan James's game time reduce. You'd then have a specialist number 10 in, who I would imagine would start. Pirro would go up front, and you'd have Rutter on the right and Somerville on the left. I would probably see him going down that. But maybe after what he's seen at the beginning of this season, he thinks we don't need a 10. Yeah, I'd be shocked because we definitely don't have a 10. We don't have a Samu Saiz or Pablo Hernandez. We don't have that tricky number 10 that can find the spots in between the defenders. Somerville is the one out of the 4 of them that does most of that. Rutter does it occasionally as well. He'll find the little passes, but Somerville's the best out of the group at it. But he's still not specialist at it. He's still inconsistent with the decision making. Yeah,
no, I agree. Skip, when Spence comes in, that drops Archie to the bench ahead of Gruev. Feel sorry for him, he ain't had that much time to show us what he can do. I mean, you touched on this earlier about the squad and players like Gruev, where do they fit in? Obviously, it's a long old season. Injuries can happen and players will get chances. I mean, for me, when Spence kind of comes back in, I love Archie as the central midfield option. I'd probably have him ahead of Gruev as well, because for me, Archie can just pretty much do everything. He can get his foot stuck in. He's got the balance, the technique, the vision. It might even get harder for Gruev then actually to get some minutes.
Gives us good options though, doesn't it? And the different players, Gruev, I think is more of a replacement for Ethan, and I think Archie is more of a replacement for Kamara, who I thought was excellent, by the way, yesterday as well. He was right up there. I mean, his energy yesterday, it was just everywhere. And he's press resistant, his ability to turn on the ball and open up space for himself, I thought it was excellent. But I think that's a good problem to have. For far too long, we've been of the mindset that, we can't have these players sat on the bench not playing, and then it needs to be filled with kids. Some of that will be Bielsa, some of that with the club, and all the rest in between. But I think it's better that it's this way. And I mean, touch wood, but we've actually been quite fortunate when it comes to injuries this season. We've had this situation with Spence, and really, apart from that, we've done all right. So,
the coming back so quickly was phenomenal, wasn't it?
The fact that we've not lost a centre midfielder to injury all season yet, considering how combative Ampadu is especially, is quite surreal, really. So I would imagine that Gruev probably was brought in under the premise that he was second choice behind Ampadu, but you're going to get chances when he's suspended or injured. I actually didn't think Ampadu had a great game yesterday. I've seen a few people say that he had a really good game. I saw somebody in the comments a minute ago say that he's been off it for a few weeks. I didn't think he was great yesterday. I thought first half especially, I thought he was a bit careless at times up until the assist. I thought he was a bit sloppy, a little bit lackadaisical. I didn't think he put his body on the line a couple of times, and I thought, come on, get in there, Ethan. Second half, I thought he improved. So
I feel like his performance has been heading in that trajectory though for a while.
No,
I feel like
I agree.
It's kind of, and it's tough because he has played so many games and he's playing for Wales, and he's playing so much football, and you're almost kind of thinking, well, can't we get Gruev in and give him a break or rest or something? But yeah, I know what you mean. I've not been overly kind of impressed with Ampadu.
He's not playing badly.
No, he's not playing badly, and he set off Rutter's goal, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's tough, isn't it? I mean, it's tough week in, week out, or especially when it's Saturday, Wednesday games in the centre of midfield in the Championship. It's tough, isn't it? It's tough.
I mean, Swansea are not a bad side, but the level difference in ability in them two teams yesterday, especially in the midfield. I mean, I know we've got our axe to grind with Matt Grimes, but he's so crap. He's not to be horrible, but he's just such a basic, bog standard, boring midfielder that just doesn't do anything in particular. And yesterday, I mean, I thought Kamara just put him to shame. He just ran rings around him.
Yeah, he did. It was. I mean, Kamara. I mean, just a word on his performance, because this guy every week is just his technique and his level is just something else, isn't it? He seems to have a sniff for wanting to get a goal as well, doesn't he? Now he's kind of a bit of an attacking intent there as well, isn't there? You know what I mean? And
I like him.
If he can add that to his game as well, he'll be kind of a complete midfielder for us.
He's a perfect box-to-box midfielder.
Yeah.
Carries the ball really well. I think he's okay defensively. I think sometimes he could be a little bit more, robust in some of the moments. I think what I don't like about him is when he is asked to defend a clearance or something like that, his clearances tend to be a little bit like flimsy. The goal against Rotherham, the Rotherham goal, he had a moment in that as well where he kind of just swings a leg at it. But I'm being super hypercritical. I think he's a standout in the division. Can't believe we took so long to sign him in
mad, isn't it?
In perspective, didn't it? Yeah, it went on and on.
Let's have a look at some comments saying Kevin Otto Pirro won't go in the 9. Gale, Foxes and Tractor Boys need to keep slipping up. Also, Gale, lose Rodon and Ampadu long term, we will be in trouble.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that a lot.
Skip, who would you say has been our best player so far this season? For me, the magic this season has been Rutter. I've enjoyed watching Rutter the most this season. For me, he's kind of, after 2 really poor years watching Leeds United, he's really kind of made me enjoy watching football again, to be honest. Some of the things he's done has just been spectacular. I mean, it's difficult. Is it when you say best player, obviously there's Rodon, there's Ampadu, there's a lot of candidates. I suppose. Somerville. Yeah, absolutely.
James. I mean, how would you look past without having a conversation about James? I'd still edge Ampadu, even though I've just said what I've said about Ampadu last couple. But I'd still edge Ampadu because I think he elevates us. I think he leads us. I think he offers us so much in possession, out of possession. He breaks up play extremely well. His distribution's good. He reads the game well. Like, I absolutely love Ethan Ampadu. I mean, I've waxed lyrical about him all season. I just think over the last 3 or 4 performances, and maybe it's fatigue, he definitely looks worse when he comes back from international duty.
Yeah.
He did it the last international duty, and he did it against Rotherham as well. He just looks a little bit leggy, which then it's actually not his fault, really. He should just be rotated. But yeah, Gale's spot on there with, you mean, all the players. Like, there's been a lot of good performances this season. Pascal has stepped back up to a level I didn't think he had. I'd have sold him in the summer, if I'm honest. I'm glad to have been totally wrong. I think Byram has stood out considering the job that he's asked to do. Ampadu, Rutter. There's so many because we're most weeks and for long periods of most games we're playing some good stuff. There's just some sharpening up of the tools that we need to do to take us to that next level. But the fact is that, bar a record start for Leicester and Ipswich, we would be in the top 2. And we're now seeing that these 2 are still not infallible. They're still dropping points. Ipswich, Leicester are now taken 4 points in the last 12. And that's a huge drop off, and dropping points, as we know, against Sheffield Wednesday, like, that's a really, really poor drop of points. Ipswich lost 2 on the bounce, I think it was. They've got back onto some form, but they're not perfect. It's there for us. It is there for us. We've just got to be consistent. We've got to keep on winning games.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. For me, it's all about the top 2 positions as well. I think, before the season, I think even yourself, you were thinking, look, playoffs will be a good performance this year. My kind of thing with it now is it feels like, I don't want to say we need to get promoted, but I don't know what a second year in the Championship will look like in terms of player retention. And if we're this good when we're firing all cylinders, we have to get promoted. I mean, my fear is, and I said it to you last night, I could totally see if we are in the playoffs, we will lose to West Brom in the playoffs, either in the semi-finals or the final. I could guarantee I will bet my house on the fact that we would lose to a West Brom type team in the playoffs. I don't want to be anywhere near those playoffs. The automatic places for me is what we've got to be aiming for it, and I'm sure that's what they're all pushing for. it does bring so much pressure because it's so difficult. It really is difficult. But I just feel like this is our best chance. I really feel. I don't know what a second year would look like. I mean, Somerville, Rutter. I mean, you're going to keep these players in a second year in the Championship. How can you keep them? I just don't see it.
The biggest problem that we've got is that we've got a lot of attractive young players with huge ceilings. Which I believe some of, certainly Southampton, West Brom, Leicester maybe do, but they don't have them kind of players that'll just be plucked off. There'll be still some that we'd keep. I think Ampadu would give us another season. Kamara would still be there. There'd be some within some of that. Pirro, I think, could stay. You're not going to lose them all, but the likes of our most attacking talent, Rutter, Somerville, Nonto, there's others. I think Pascal, if he carries on with this, his ceiling would then, and potential for clubs buying him would skyrocket. Archie Gray, there's a bunch. Rodon won't stay for another season. He's a Premier League centre back, in my opinion. So you're then talking about a whole rebuild again
with less money. With less
money, with another season. And more pressure, because then you've got a second season where you're having to deal with this. So I think Leicester are in a similar position. I think they've got a few players that probably won't stick around too long, and they'd get plucked off. But we are in a position where we can demand high money for these players. They're not going to get plucked off for 15, 20 million. And we've seen that in this summer, So I think Somerville, Nonto, Rutter, especially, are probably our most valuable assets, and Archie Gray. I think they're all going to cost 30, 40 million. But hopefully we don't need to see that. I think it's going to be a slog. It's going to be a slog right till the end of the season, because West Brom and Southampton have now shown they're right in there. Like if we think we can catch Ipswich and Leicester, then they think the same as well.
West Brom. I mean, where has this come from? I mean, it's Corberan special, isn't it? It's just Corberan. Jeez, they don't concede.
He's showing himself to be a top manager, because he's dealing with some real problems at these clubs as well. Huddersfield were the same. I mean, how we managed to get that Huddersfield team to a playoff final and one goal away from Premier League.
Can I just say, a Huddersfield kicking themselves for not backing him a bit more and keeping that man there at the club? I mean, for the sake of, just giving them a little bit more of what they want. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Probably. I know they never had a huge amount of love for him. I think if you speak to Steve about him, he's kind of a bit apathetic towards him. It's just like, nah, okay, he did a good job, but I weren't bothered when he left. But in terms of seeing the job that he's done at the two English clubs that he's been at, and what he's obviously picked up at Leeds as well, because he was well thought of and respected by Marcelo, and he did a great job with the 23s or the 21s, whatever it was at the time. I think he's done a top job. And bear in mind, he's working under serious financial restraints at West Brom. Like, they don't have loads of money. They're actually in a lot of trouble. So for him to be able to deal with all that, get the quality in, coach the quality, coach the tactic and the style, and to be in and around that hunt for a top 2 spot, fair play to him and fair play to them. I mean, we've seen him this season. We played him off the park. We should have won that game.
Yeah.
But they've clearly gone on to take enough points to be in the reckoning,
Yeah, absolutely, and it's going to be fascinating seeing how it unfolds. But I think the pressure is going to ramp up the whole way. It's not going to be easy.
No,
as Gail says here, it's our average start. Why we're behind? Yeah, absolutely. But we're at least seeing a chink in the armour now of the top 2, because that form they were on a few weeks ago, where it was literally win after win after win. I mean, it was so demoralising. It felt like we were never going to be able to catch them up. It was absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Okay, let's have a chat about Rutter and the goal, because it needs special mention. We've mentioned it already. Ampadu knocks the ball over. Talk to me about that first touch.
It's just class, isn't it? I mean, and again, Gio is very good with both feet, but he's left-footed, and he takes that down dead on his right foot. And then the quality to put your body in between the ball and the defender. The defender couldn't do anything without wiping him out. It was undefendable. He takes his time, and the finish is, a top finish. It really, really is a top finish. It's just a special goal again. And I'm so glad to see him get his first goal at Ellen Road. And what I love most about Gio, I said this to you last night, he always looks like he's on the wind-up. He always looks like he's having a great time. He looks like he loves what he's doing. He looks like he loves playing football. And I just love watching him. I love watching him play football. And I love watching him just in and around the place having fun. Like when Pirot scored, his reaction over to him, he's just giddy. He's just a giddy kid, and I hope he keeps that. Like I hope he never loses that. It just seems like a lovely lad. I'm super happy for him because after what happened last night, he should never have been brought in January. Never brought in January. We now see the talent that we clearly paid for. We see it week in, week out, pretty much. Understand that Victor finds these rough diamonds from time to time, but it was horrific to put that lad into the situation that we put him into in January. Would have been better going out and signing Danny Ings on loan. You know what I mean? Like somebody that knows what we needed at the time, rather than putting this poor kid into it. And fair play to him. He's come back this season. He's not been looking to leave and go back home or go back to, France or whatever. Go back to Germany where he originally played, or go back to France. He says, no, I'm going to play and I'm going to be the main man for Daniel Farke. And fair play to Daniel Farke for getting him, in this kind of mode where he feels like he can express himself week in, week out, because that's good man management. It's just a joy to watch, mate. It's so much fun to watch.
Well, he's another one as well, and I do find myself kind of probably getting ahead of myself, but I think of how many of these players will be able to step up to potentially Premier League level, and it's really difficult because even someone like Rutter, where you're watching these dazzling displays week in, week out, but you think, is he going to be able to get away with that in the Premier League? Is he going to be able to develop beyond even that in the Premier League? Because he's going to have to step it up again, back in the Premier League. And it's a question. I mean, if we get promoted, it's going to be fascinating what they do with the squad, because, these boys have got you promoted, but then how good actually are they, and will they actually keep you up in the quality of the Premier League? But kind of sticking with Rutter, I mean, it would be fascinating. I mean, for me, he should have been given more of a go when he did join. I mean, we were getting nothing from Bamford. We should have given him more of a go. For me, I mean, I remember when he came on in that last game against Tottenham, and he actually looked pretty decent. You're going, why was this guy that we paid 35 million for in January? Why not play him? We're getting relegated anyway, for God's sake. He certainly looks to have something about him. But anyways, that's all.
I think it was very much on the pragmatic managers that we had, wasn't it? Gracia and Allardyce, neither of them. I think it was easy for Allardyce to say this kid ain't ready, rather than put his neck on put his neck on the block and put him out there. I don't know.
7 defenders, nice one.
When we need to win. Anyway, let's not go there.
No, let's not go down. Let's not go down that route again. But so I mean, we saw kind of a few subs coming on last night. Nonto, Bamford. Let's have a chat about Bamford, because you and I think we had a bit of a, we didn't probably share the same opinion last night. Where do you start with Pat? I mean, he comes on, and I mean, do you know, it was funny because I was watching, I just, as you do, I saw a compilation of Leeds' Premier League goals from a couple of years ago. And, remember when Bamford's whacking them in from like 25 yards? And
the goal against Leicester always sticks in my mind.
Yes. Hits it across top corner.
Such a great finish. Yeah.
The Villa hat-trick.
First time.
Oh, and it's like, you have your injuries and stuff. But for me, it's like he just can't even hit the ball anymore. It's
the
just
crowd. It's the crowd.
It's got to be, hasn't it?
I'm convinced with Pat that behind closed doors, he was a different player because of the expectation and the pressure. He was allowed to be able to show his whole game. And I think mentally he's weak. I've said this before. I think he's pretty weak. And that's what I put it down to. That's exactly what I put it down to. I did think he did some good stuff yesterday. Like when the ball was coming into him, he was using his body well, was holding the ball up. When we're 3-1 up, that's kind of what you need from a target man striker. So I'm okay with that. It's just when he gets
not just
ball,
the bare minimum, though, isn't that just the bare minimum is like he can actually control a football. Like I'm like, is that where we've got to with him? It's like, well done, you control the football.
I get what you mean, but it's what the team needs in that moment. So like Pirot won't really be a target man where he backs in and hustles the ball and wins a throw in. Like he gets brought on in that period of the game to do a particular job. I thought his movement was okay yesterday. There were a moment where you were laughing.
You know the one, don't you? You know the one where I'm like, what is he doing there?
He was on one wavelength and Kamara was on another, wasn't he? I think it was. But then there were a moment where the ball was played into him. He made a really good run. He turned back round and he played a perfect ball into Nonto's path. And again, I think Bamford is good at doing that. My problem with Bamford is it never feels, I said to you yesterday, it never feels like he's going to score. It just feels like he's never going to score ever again. Like, he makes a good run in front of the front post, but that chance where he is about, 6-7 yards out and he flicks it around the front post, he's never going to score that. It looks like he's putting himself into a good position, but it's not smart, that. Because it'd almost be better letting it run. He knows it's going to go wide if he puts too much contact on it. So it just don't make sense. And then there were another one where he struck it from distance, straight at the keeper. Like, how is he hitting it straight at the keeper? You're running straight onto it. I don't know, but...
Do you know what I didn't like? What I didn't like, and I mentioned this to you, is where Somerville dribbled around about 3 players and then laid it on the plate for him. And there was like no acknowledgement from Bamford at what this guy's just set me up. There wasn't like a thumbs up or, kind of there was just not. Bamford just turned and it's like,
he don't look part of it, does he?
Don't look part of it. And I think, this was he part of the leadership group, that thing that Jesse Marsh set up, and it's like those, and it's like when you see Coops, he still seems big, part of it does Coops. He's hugging plays, he's encouraging plays, even Ayling, it's been noted that he's very positive influence. With Bamford, I'm looking at him sometimes. I looked at him, then I'm like, you do realise like Somerville has been absolutely incredible. And I don't know whether he's got this thing of like he's watched Somerville come from the under-21s and there was question marks about Somerville's attitude at the start and all this, but I don't know. I just feel that, there's not that positivity coming from. The body language is horrendous.
I think Bamford's a bit of an act to me. Like whenever I've watched him on interviews, I always think I'm not seeing the true you here. I feel like he puts this persona on in the media, like he does. He used to do the Leeds United podcast with Bex and Emma Jones, and then he's doing this new podcast. And don't get me wrong, I like listening to footballers, so I'm gonna watch it. But I always feel like he's this like alter ego in front of the camera, and then I feel like he's got a chip. I certainly feel like since Bielsa's gone, especially, I feel like he thinks, I'm the man. I'm Patrick Bamford, who scored 17 goals in the Premier League. And it just doesn't translate to then what we see week in, week out on the pitch. And I agree with you completely that while Coops and Ayling, they shouldn't be on the pitch very much, if at all, in terms of actual ability. I do believe that they're right in it. I think they want the right things for Leeds United, especially Cooper. I think Liam Cooper, he's absolute diehard. I can imagine he'd probably cut his career short to take a position on the coaching team. I think he loves being here that much. So, I agree with you. For me, the best thing that could happen with Bamford is that he does move on and we sign a replacement. I don't think that's going to happen in the window in January.
Joseph? I mean, what about Matteo Joseph? Is it time to say, right, he's kind of disappeared off the radar completely, hasn't he, at Leeds? I know he's been playing in England squads and stuff. Is it not? I mean, I don't know how you can get less than what Bamford is offering. I mean, I know I've got to admit there's been a couple of games this season where I've thought, he's kind of disrupted things and he's done okay, kind of, a bit of a nuisance for defenders and stuff. But I don't know if it's like, about time that we kind of move on now.
I think this comes down to Daniel Farke. I think with the exception of Archie, I don't think he's shown that many minutes to the really young lads. I mean, I still have my issue with him not playing Lewis Bate at all. I don't get it. You could point the same accusation at Charlie. Signs a 5-year contract and doesn't play. He gets one game in the cup. I don't see the likes of Somerville, Nonto, while they're still young lads, they're not that crop of young, So I don't know. I don't know what that answer is. I don't know why Matteo Joseph wouldn't have get any game time, especially considering the fact that he got so much during pre-season. Maybe that injury just came at the worst time, and he's not getting selected purely out of training.
Yeah,
tricky to say.
Yeah, fair play, CB. What's left to say about Bamford? It's all been said. Yeah, it's a bit of an old record now, isn't it, with Bamford? I mean, you raise a fascinating point there, though. You know, these kind of youngsters on the fringes of the squad. You know, your Gellart, your Cresswells. It's not worked out so far how we thought. I mean, for me, especially when Rodon's out, I would like to see Charlie be given an opportunity. I mean, there's got to be something there. I mean, guys played at England level. You know, I know his Millwall loan was kind of mixed. I think it ended pretty well though before he got the eye injury. He was kind of doing well. It's just I'm probably most surprised that he's not had more opportunities, especially when Rodon's been out, because I mean, you know, when he's been in, he's not performed poorly. I know there was a couple of pre-season games where he looked miles off it. There might have even been a league game where he got in and he looked miles off it. I think, or the cup game possibly. I think that we saw.
He weren't good when we were against Shrewsbury. He didn't play well.
But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be fascinating to see what Leeds do there, isn't it? Really, with those youngsters, because you know, if we do start to get injuries, you know, we do need that squad depth.
I've seen this comment about Cresswell think he's still got a personal problem. I don't know what that is. I've heard the same thing as well, but he's been on the bench at times this season and not played when he could have come on. Why, when Rodon has been out, has it been Cooper coming in and we're playing two left backs and sacrificing Stroke to the right? I don't know. And we don't know what this personal problem is. Is it a personal problem in terms of, like, he's had a fallout with Farker? Like, I don't know. But it's not just him, is it? With the exception of Archie, there isn't any really youth getting opportunity. We're seeing the likes of Bamford getting every opportunity in front of a Joseph or even a Gellart. And I'm not saying I want Gellart to start. My point is that we know what we're going to get from Bamford. Maybe it's just super pragmatic, and we as fans just want to see what these kids have got. You know, I made the point yesterday that Bamford came on and he played a role. Maybe the facts are is that Joseph just couldn't play that role. So then the right thing to do for winning promotion is to bring Bamford on. It's a tricky one. It is a tricky one because you have to try and develop these players.
Yeah, I mean, fair play, Arthur. How come Millwall never came back into him for him?
I don't think we would have accepted an offer for him. The facts are is he's our third or fourth choice centre back. Yeah. He signed a 5-year contract, and after having a season on loan in the Championship, a fairly successful season, it makes sense that he comes back into our squad and plays. But there's no way that he can be happy with the fact that he's not playing. There's absolutely no way that he can be happy with that.
No, I mean, CB, he makes a point. Maybe Farker doesn't trust you, but actually great expected. Do you know what I think with Farker? I think he absolutely views this job as he is going to make the best decision for the team that's most likely to win us the points. I don't think he's looking at his responsibilities to develop talent. I mean, he even mentioned about Archie Gray and the fact about being overplayed. And then he was like, look, I'm going to pick the best players. You know, and that is the only rule, you know. I mean, it's like, you know, he gave a bit of lip service to Shackleton earlier in the season about, you know, he loves Shacks, but I mean, you know, he's certainly not going to get get starts because he loves him. You know, I think Farker Farker's at a point in his career as a manager now where this job has to work for him. You know, if he's going to if he's going to get to the elite level, i.e., managing in a top league like the Premier League, this has got to happen for him. And I think he's not going to mess about with trying maybes and ifs. He's just going to be, I mean, look what he's done with Ayling. He's bombed Ayling out, you know, and Ayling could have been bombed out maybe a year ago, 18 months ago, 2 years. You know, he's done it, hasn't he? He's dropped Cooper. You know, Cooper's fit, but you know, it used to be that Cooper, whenever he was fit, he was in. Well, it isn't anymore, you know, and even Bamford, you know, Bamford was, but every time Bamford was fit last year, he played. That would be unthinkable now. That would be unthinkable. The only thing Farker, for me, cares about is being absolutely clinical in making the best decision and who are the best players and who is going to get him promoted.
100%. I think for Farker, the only thing that matters is winning the game. Yeah. It's literally just winning the game. And you know what? I appreciate that. And the facts are we would want that over anything else as fans as well. So it's finding that balance, isn't it? Because developing youth is really, really important. developing talented youth is extremely important for the future of the club in terms of what we get, in terms of players playing for us. And then also resale, bringing these players on and developing them for most clubs is how clubs survive. They have to be getting minutes to develop in first team football. So it's tricky. It is tricky because if you're old enough, you're good enough. I do think if Joseph was as good as Archie in his role, he would probably be playing, which then answers a question for us a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah.
In that, fine, okay.
Yeah.
It's probably that. But it's then minutes every now and again, which then allow them players to develop and push on. So it's a real tough one. Real tough one to get right.
Just looking at the wider context of the club, few appointments being made now by the 49ers in terms of adding to the structure of the club. Few articles written up this week about the fact that really, despite spending 3 years in the Premier League, it was definitely run very championship-y in terms of in terms of the number of personnel, in terms of recruitment division. It looks like a club that's been in the Championship for the best part of 20 years still, and it doesn't sound like too much progress was made on that front, even despite 3 years in the Premier League. But 49ers are coming in, so they've hired Maury Eisenberg. He's now the COO, the Chief Operating Officer. He's got 20 years of experience. He's worked with the 49ers. He helped organise the stadium move for the 49ers. That talk is all bubbling up now. Apparently they've been speaking to developers and there's a lot of kind of promise building with that. I think they're on about, I think it was quoted in the Athletic, a new 55,000 seat stadium is what they're kind of looking at and trying to get up to 400 million revenue a year. So certainly it's positive stuff. Building the club up like that, you love to hear it because that structure's got to be there, isn't it? And we're not accepting championship life, thank God, because you never know, do you? I mean, we didn't know what we were going to get with the 49ers taking over 100%, but what's his name? The recruitment guy, Nick Hammond. He's staying on now, isn't he? He's staying on, which I think is fantastic news because if you do end up another year in the championship, you're going to need someone like that to get the Ampadu and Rodon deals through the door. But I mean, it's certainly good news, isn't it? At least we're trying to kind of build up that structure, and it's disappointing that it didn't happen earlier, really, especially the fact that we had 3 years in the Premier League.
You know what, mate? It actually feels like we're being run like a proper business and like a proper football club now for the first time in, well, I can't even remember.
Our lifetime.
In our lifetime. Don't get me wrong, Rads did he played his part.
Yeah,
we can't be, in hindsight, just all chastising towards Rads because he did a lot of good, and from where we'd come from with the Mad Italian and all the rest of it, like he brought us a long way and he brought us Marcelo. So we can't, just shoot him. But this is a different level. These people are a different level of professional and proper business people, and I'm not surprised. We all heard the stories of what was going on behind the scenes and with all the different rumours and whatnot in what was allowed to happen under that regime. And thankfully, it appears as if it's going in the right direction. I mean, I've told you about my hopeful involvement in the club, and I mean that came about because we had, I think it was 15 different scouting roles created only a couple of months ago to broaden out the scouting horizon, because previously it was all done through Victor Orta and his contacts. We didn't really have a scouting network. How is that even a thing? So they've been recruiting scouts all over the country for all levels: first team, youth team, the kids, the juniors, all sorts of different positions, video analysts abroad. So we've been recruiting positions. This is Leeds, I'm talking when I say we. We've been recruiting people in Holland, Scandinavia, in scouting roles that we didn't have before. You know what I mean? So it's crazy, but that's how a proper football club is run.
Yeah, well, it's fascinating that you've mentioned about all the roles they've created as well. there's quite a big one here. I'm just on the website, and it's academy manager vacancy, where you're going to report to the head of football operations, and you're going to implement the club's youth development strategy and drive the academy's performance. I mean, that's a huge role. That is massive. But I mean, really, situationally, Leeds, I mean, historically, we've always produced talent because we're the biggest draw in the region, aren't we? We suck up that talent from this region, and it's a hotbed for football, and there's going to be that talent there. And we really need to, really kind of utilize that, don't we? And exploit that, really.
100%. We're a huge draw. We're a huge draw to first team players, but certainly the youth in and around this area. If we can create a proper gateway to first team football, everybody wants to play for the very best teams possible, but there also is a lot of shrewd people around, and they understand that opportunities are not always available to the likes of, to all players at the likes of Manchester City and Manchester United. Teams in and around our area, really, in perspective, junior level, they recruit all the way up to a maximum of 90 minutes away. So it's well within our grasp to get some of these players that are not deemed quite good enough for Man City, Manchester United, or from players and families where they think, there'll be a better opportunity for us to actually make the grade as a professional footballer at Leeds United. So we need to be all over that, all over it.
Absolutely. Well, just before we wrap up, tricky game at the weekend, Middlesbrough, really tough one. I mean, it's never easy, is it, against that lot? They've really kind of turned it around after a really bad start this season. They've gone not off the boil at the moment, but they're not quite as flying as they were a few games ago. I'm glad we didn't face them then. But it's going to be a tough game, isn't it, Jason? We've got to really prove ourselves again in this one, haven't we?
It's going to be a really tricky one. I feel like every game we go into at home, we're going to win. That's just how I feel at the moment. It feels like whenever we turn up at Ellen Road, we're going to win the game. Away from home's a little bit different, but I will say that I do fancy us more when we are playing the teams that will come at us. And I think Middlesbrough at home there'll be a certain amount of expectation to come out and try and beat us, try and win the game themselves. They also need the points because their expectation at the beginning of the season will certainly have been promotion, or certainly in and around the top 6 battle. So I think it favours us. I think it's a tough game. Like I said earlier on in the show, I would 100% take a point. But I think we can go there and win, mate. I think we can go there and win.
Yeah, big opportunity as well because West Brom are playing Leicester. So Leicester have got to go to West Brom as well. So that's
who would you want to win that?
I'd still want West Brom to win that. Yeah, and peg Leicester back because I mean the funny thing is, I mean I'm not saying I see it, but I mean could Leicester have like a big enough wobble that they actually drop out and then promotion? I mean it looks. I mean there's a bit of rumblings going on about the fact that they're looking at player recruitment. They're going to lose some players, aren't they, as well to the international tournaments, AFCON. So it's going to be interesting. Meanwhile, Ipswich, they've got Coventry at home, so it's probably going to be run of the mill for them. Although Coventry have won the last couple of games, so
we've said all season, Browney. We've said all season that Leicester weren't playing very well.
No,
we've said it all season, and we obviously went there. And to be honest, I think we beat them very comfortably. Really, if Pirro had been on the ball that day, we'd have had 2 or 3, I think. With the exception of the chance that hit the bar towards the beginning of the first half, they didn't really create anything other than the last minute when Meslier pulled the save off, which you'd expect, given that was only a goal in the game late into the game. I've not seen anything that's that impressive, and I've seen a couple of people say in the comments, and I've seen it myself, like Leicester fans are not happy. Like, they're top of the league, they are still top of the league, but they're not particularly happy with what they're seeing, which, it only takes 10, well, not even a 10%, probably a 2% shift in a little bit of luck and the opponents believing in themselves a little bit more, and they start losing games, and teams start picking up points against them. Yeah. Sheffield Wednesday, horrendous. Like, I believe if we would play Sheffield Wednesday 99 times out of 100, we'd beat them. I don't think we were particularly great in that game, but we weren't fully firing. And I think that is a dreadful, dreadful drop of points because they are really bad. So hopefully it continues. I'm I don't think Leicester are out of sight. 100%.
No, I agree. We certainly hope so. Mark, thanks very much for your comment, mate. Make sure you do subscribe as well. We appreciate that, pal. So yes, it's another big game at the weekend. I want to thank everyone who's watched and liked and commented as well. If you're watching again later on, please do leave a comment as well. Let us know what you think of everything that we've discussed, and the show will be
hit a straight review on Saturday.
Yes, absolutely. Let's do it. Let's get back to it. Whatever may happen. It'll also be available to download as a podcast on Spotify as well there. So we'll be back at the weekend, Jace. Come on.
Yeah, score prediction.
I do agree with you about every time we're at Ellen Road, I'm like, we're gonna win. I think we're gonna win. I think it's 2-0. 2-0. It's dangerous when I'm optimistic about a score prediction. You should be worried. You should be nervous. But yeah,
2-1
Leeds.
2-1
Leeds. We'll take
2-1 Leeds.
We'll take that.
Tight game. I think it's going to be tough. They've still got some good players. Sorry, 0-0 for Saturday. I take it. You know what? If that were offered to me now, I'd probably take it.
You take a 0-0?
I probably would. I think it's a big point up there.
Playoff talk, is that, Jason? That's playoff talk. We need top 2 talk. Come on.
We'll
see. Depends on the other results. But yeah, hopefully, big opportunity to hopefully catch up Leicester as well at the top. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, guys. I've been Stephen Brown. Along with me has been Jason Booker as well. Jason, thank you, mate.
Thank you, mate.
And we'll see you again at the weekend. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thanks for watching.